have hills and valleys in one's mind.
胸有丘壑。
Hello everyone. Have you ever seen a withered tree so alive it makes you hold your breath? I remember standing in front of an old Chinese painting. A twisted tree was drawn on it. The branches were bare and the bark was cracked. Yet it looked stronger than any living tree around me. I asked the nearby teacher why this dead-looking tree moved me so deeply. She smiled and said the painter had hills and valleys in his mind. I did not understand that phrase at the time. What does it mean to have hills and valleys in one's mind? Do you carry mountains inside you? Does your soul hide deep valleys? The answer is yes. And it is more beautiful than you can imagine. Let me take you back almost 1,000 years to find out. The year was around 1090 in ancient China. A great artist named Su Shi picked up his brush. He was not painting a grand mountain or a flowing river. He was painting a single dead tree. His friend Huang Tingjian watched quietly in the room. Huang saw the brush move fast and sure. Then he saw something strange. That tree was not just old wood. It was wrestling with storms. It was twisting against freezing winds. It had fought and it had survived. When the painting was done, Huang wrote a poem for his friend. One line has lasted through the centuries. It goes like this. He has hills and valleys deep within. That is why this old tree rides in wind and frost. Those hills and valleys were not real places. Su Shi carried them in his mind. He had been exiled to remote lands. He had walked along the Yellow River. He had climbed the steep paths of the south. He had faced losing his job and his home. But every river he crossed and every peak he saw did not just pass before his eyes. They sank into his soul. They became part of his inner map. When he touched his brush to paper, his hand did not just draw a line. It poured out a lifetime of climbing and falling. The cracked bark was his own hardship. The stubborn roots were his refusal to break. This is what we call having hills and valleys in one's mind. It is not about being a painter. It is about how you see the world. The Chinese word for hill is qiu. The word for valley is he. Together they create a landscape within you. This landscape is built by everything you read. It is shaped by every place you visit. It is deepened by every mistake you learn from. When life puts a storm in front of you, this inner landscape does not wash away. It gives you a place to stand. Someone with an empty mind sees a problem and panics. They see a flat plain with nowhere to hide. Someone with hills and valleys sees the same problem and finds a path. They know which ridge to climb and which river to cross. They have been there before in their thoughts. Let me tell you a short story about that inner strength. A young architect was given a very tough job. She had to design a building on a rocky slope. Other builders said the land was impossible. They saw only a mess of stone and dirt. but she walked that slope for hours. She sat on the big rocks. She listened to the water running below. Then she drew her plan. She did not fight the rocks. She let them become part of the design. An older builder looked at her work and nodded. He said she must have hills and valleys in her mind. She saw what others could not see. She felt the shape of the land in her bones. That is the power of this ancient wisdom. Now think about the word valley for a moment. We usually think of a valley as something low and safe between two heights. But in this idiom, the valley is also a place of depth and mystery. It represents the quiet parts of you, the places where you reflect and recover. The word hill represents your aspirations and your vision, the high points from which you see far ahead. You need both. A mind with only hills is just a windy ridge. A mind with only valleys is just a hidden ditch. But together they make a complete world inside you. A world that no one can take away. Why does this matter for you today? Because we live in a very noisy time. Information hits us from every side. It is easy to feel flat and overwhelmed. We scroll past 1,000 pictures of mountains, but we never feel their weight. We see videos of ocean waves, but we never taste the salt. Our minds are full of fragments, but they lack a real landscape. The ancient Chinese artists knew a secret. Real vision is not about how many pictures you have seen. It is about how many storms you have weathered in your heart. They believed you should travel not just to take photos but to fill your inner map. They believed you should study not just to pass a test but to build your inner mountain range. This brings us to a beautiful irony of this phrase. Having hills and valleys in one's mind sounds very grand. It sounds like something only a genius can have. But the truth is exactly the opposite. This landscape is built by ordinary struggle. It is carved by the small rivers of daily effort. You add a new hill every time you finish a difficult book. You deepen a valley every time you sit quietly with a cup of tea and just think. You create a winding path every time you choose patience over anger. There is no special ceremony to get this inner world. You are building it right now. Right now as you listen to these words. Every new English word you learn is a small pebble in your own mental garden. Every story you understand shapes the rivers of your thought. Look at the great masters of any field. A chef does not just taste the sauce. She tastes the history of the dish in her mind. A musician does not just hit the note. He hears the silence between the sounds. A writer does not just choose words. She feels the rhythm of the human heart. All of them have hills and valleys in their minds. They have depth and height. They are not flat. They are rich with texture and memory. You can be that way too. So how do we keep building this inner world? The answer is surprisingly simple. It is in how you pay attention. Do not just look at a tree. Feel the texture of its bark with your eyes. Do not just read this story. Let the words settle in your mind like stones sinking in a pond. When you learn a new English phrase like hills and valleys in one's mind, do not just memorize it. Say it out loud. Feel the shape of the words in your mouth. The word hill is short and climbs up at the end. The word valley opens wide and falls down. Say them together. Hill and valley. Hill and valley. Now say the full phrase. Have hills and valleys in one's mind. This phrase is not just a pretty sentence. It is a reminder. It reminds you that you are not just a consumer of content. You are a builder of landscapes. The next time you feel lost or scared, remember you have hills to climb and valleys to rest in. The next time you face a problem that seems too big, remember you have seen bigger mountains in your mind. You have crossed deeper rivers in your soul. Stand on the ridge of your own experience. Look out at the view. See how far you have come. We should thank that old painting and that old poet. They left us a key to a door we all have inside us. A door that opens not to a different world but to a deeper view of this one. That twisted tree painted 1,000 years ago still breathes today. Because Saussure did not paint a tree. He painted his own inner landscape. He painted his hills and valleys. He painted the wind and the frost that could not break him. And now you know why that painting made me hold my breath. It was not just art. It was a map of a human soul. So let me ask you one last question. What does your inner landscape look like today? Maybe it is just a small hill and a tiny stream. That is a wonderful start. Protect it. Add to it every day. Fill it with the colors of your own stories. Learn the words to describe it in any language you choose. Because the person who has hills and valleys in their mind will never truly be lost. They carry their own world within. And that world is more than enough. See you in the next story.
下集请移步主页观看。